Okay, welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Westside Congregation. I am Laurel Anderson. Our speaker today is our consulting minister, the Reverend Dr. Nancy Hitt. To everyone here in the sanctuary and to those joining us later online, we extend our warmest greetings. Today's program is titled Trauma, Healing, and Us. It is based on Principle 2, Justice, Equity, and Compassion in Human Relations, and Source 1, Direct Experience in Transcending Mystery and Wonder affirmed in all cultures, which move us to a renewal of the spirit and an openness to the forces that create and uphold life. We hope you discover new ways of living these out as we consider our community as a source for healing. Our thanks today goes to Jan Walters, Bram and Roxy Castex, sorry, who greeted you at the door, and to Dana Sanford, who is monitoring our sound equipment, to Steve Poyani, our videographer, and to Carol Eaglehart, our music leader, and as well to Teresa Watson, our flautist. Thank you to everyone who helped put our service together today. Here are the announcements for today. We no longer need people to help us with the Christmas decorations, thanks to
the Poyanis.
The Poyanis! Who have taken down our decorations. This past week, we donated 49 pounds to Storehouse West. Next Sunday is Theology on Tap. This means that our service will start in the sanctuary and move to the social hall for a small group discussion. Our topic will be, what does it mean to you to be an UU? It is also a potluck meal, so bring your favorite dish to share. And since this is Theology on Tap, you are free to BYOB, the alcohol beverage of your choice. And while it will be 5 o'clock somewhere, we do advise discretion for anyone who is driving. Now, please stand as you are able and join me in lighting our chalice. Oh. Our chalice flame brings us light to enhance our vision. It brings us heat to inspire our passion. It consumes the dross and reveals the pure to heal and uphold our lives. Shalom. Please continue with our aspirations. Life is a gift. We gather in community to celebrate the glories and the mysteries of this great gift. In the light of truth and in the warmth of love, we gather to seek, to sustain, and to share. Love is the doctrine of this congregation. The quest for truth is our sacrament, and service is our prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve others in community, to the end that all souls grow into harmony with creation. Thus do we covenant with one another. Shalom. Remain standing, I think, for our opening song.
We know this one, people. Yes.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the land, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit
may be seated.
Our moment for centering today is a special one in that we are going back to the practices of ancient Greece. In ancient Greece, Plato considered music to be essential to the development of the human character and called it medicine for the soul. When Greek citizens were ill or severely distressed, they sought healing at one of the temples where music, often flute music, was a primary therapy. In the healing spirit of ancient Greece, then, I invite you now to sit back in your pew or wherever you may be at home if you're watching online, to relax, to loosen your limbs and uncross your arms and legs. Relax your hands in your lap. Close your eyes or choose a focal point and rest in the healing spirit of the ancients as Teresa plays the flute. Shalom. One of the things that keeps us connected to each other in healthy community is our practice of sharing our joys and concerns. We celebrate the joys together and support those with deep concerns and overwhelming stress or sorrow. For each one, we light a candle, a witness to the light of joy and healing. In a moment, I will bring the mic around, and Laurel will light a candle for each contribution to the increased awareness among us. If you are watching on video, you may light your candle at home at any time, or wait until we light our last one together. We will begin today with a celebration of the life of Thich Nhat Hanh, who died yesterday at the age of 95. So we have our Buddhist monk, and Laurel has lit a memorial candle, and the chime that Carol sounds is in his honor for all of the good work that he has done.
Who died?
Shalom. Now I'm going to pick up the mic, and if you have other joys and concerns, please just raise your hand and I'll bring it to you.
I have both a joy and a concern. So I'll start with the concern and end with the joy. I noticed that there are lots of elephants today, and that the title of the service is about trauma and healing. And some of you who are members of the biopark might know that there's been trauma among the animals this year. And in particular, they sent out a message about the elephants. 2 were lost this year to a disease that's related to herpes, I guess. And it needs a lot of research, and they're asking for donations to help research that will, about this disease.
Oh.
My joy is that Pat is playing music for my mother's birthday. Her 101st would have been last week.
Oh, wow.
And I want to thank the service. You always pick her favorite songs
Okay,
when it's around her birthday time. So you got 2 of them today.
very good.
So, I have a couple of concerns really. A friend of mine that I met when I visited Ireland several years ago, or just a few years, had a heart attack. He'd been feeling poorly for the last couple of years after having COVID and the long-term effects. But lucky for him, he got immediate and really good care, and he's actually going home tomorrow. And I'm pretty happy for him, unlike what was the case with my husband when he got a kidney stone about a month ago, a bleeding kidney stone, and he had several hours of wait in waiting room full of coughing journey people, and then they set him up in a chair in the hallway while they did treatments on him, which was really uncomfortable. And then 2 weeks ago he got another one, and he chose not to go to the hospital, which was risky, but you know, that's how things are right now. And my other concern is a dear internet friend that I haven't physically met, but I've had many conversations with, just found out that she's got an aggressive form of cancer and she's not going to make it. But she is someone who has created this pagan magazine for kids that she shares freely. And right now, a bunch of her friends are working to archive 20 years worth of work, which will be freely available to anyone who wants it.
One of my internet friends has passed away too. It wasn't her disease that killed her, it was the lack of pain care.
I have a joy. Bren may need to have surgery on her toe, and the foot doctor sent her to have a vascular study to make sure her circulation is good, and it is.
Congratulations on healthy toes, Brenda.
I have a joy to share, and that is that due to the fine work that you all have helped us do, Feed Rio Rancho Kids has received a substantial grant from Sandoval County Commission.
I have a joy. I got to go out and have lunch with my mom this week for her 77th birthday. The concern was that the reason I got to go have it on a weekday is because my work family has all been down with COVID, and I'm hoping that I actually get to go back to work tomorrow.
I have a joy that I'm healing. I had surgery for skin cancer on my nose. It still looks a little Frankenstein-ish, but the stitches will come out on Wednesday. As I head out of town, I'll be gone. I'll be in Key Largo for 3 months and then another month coming back, so I'll see you all in June.
Anyone or anything else? All right, then we will light one final candle for all the joys and concerns we still hold in the privacy of our own hearts. And now we light this red candle in solidarity with all the people wounded by racism. We dedicate ourselves to living lives that extinguish that evil from our world and provide justice, equity, and compassion to the victims of racial violence. Shalom. And now I invite Brent to come and do our animal ministry with us this morning. And you know, we're all about the animals today. So.
I should have brought something on elephants, but I have something on cats.
Did you know that most kittens are born with bright blue eyes, but many change color by adulthood? All mammals, except for members of the feline family, can taste sweetness. The furry tufts on the inside of the cat's ears are called ear furnishings. Now, this is a little late. It's a Christmas poem, but when I saw it, I thought, I have to do it. It's a kitty. Oh, Christmas tree. Oh, please. Oh, come on. Oh, like you didn't know what you were getting for Christmas before I ripped open all your gifts. Oh, by the way, the tree looks better on its side. Oh, really, I think so.
So our moment for all ages this morning is a special one. I need you to listen very closely because the story that you are about to hear has been adapted from the children's book, which you can see on the table in front of me, The Elephants Come Home. The author is Kim Tomsick, and the illustrations are by Hadley Hooper. The book will be here after the service if you would like to see it, but no, I will tell you in advance, you cannot take it home with you today because Laurel will need it this week. However, we want you to know that this story that you're about to hear is real. Now, responding to the story with you is, ta-da! Meet Mandla. Mandla is the youngest elephant in the herd that you will be hearing about. The version that you will hear of the story was written for children, but here are the adult facts, and you will notice as Laurel reads the story that they've been softened a little bit for children. The facts are that Mandla's herd was devastated when their matriarch was murdered by a poacher. The herd then went on several rampages through nearby villages, destroying property and terrifying the villagers. So please hold this in the background of your mind. This is a real story based on real events.
Once there was a man named Lawrence. Lawrence loved animals. Lawrence had a wife named Francois. Francois loved Lawrence, and they had a dog named Max. Together they lived at a place called Tula Tula. Tula Tula had a farmhouse, a garden, a swimming pool, and 11,000 acres of African bush, savanna, and forest. There was no hunting at Tula Tula. One day, a lady telephoned Lawrence. "Lawrence," she said, "will you adopt a herd of very angry elephants?" "Angry?" asked Lawrence. "They've been bullied and hunted," the lady said, "and now they roar at the rangers and crush our fences. Folks are frightened that the herd might stampede through town. And the village chief says it's a matter of safety. The herd must leave or be shot." Lawrence had never taken care of elephants before, but he said, "Yes, they may come to Tula Tula." Lawrence built a bomba, a wide corral with a strong fence where the elephants could live while they got used to their new home. He fixed broken spots in the outside fence too. Then he put up new signs reminding the neighboring Zulu villagers, no hunting. The elephants had a long journey by trailer from their old home to Tula Tula. Their leader, Nana, stomped down the ramp to their new home first. Then came the littlest Mandla, then 4 other elephants. The herd looked around at the strange new place and the strange new people, and they pounded their hoofs and trumpeted loudly. "They're naughty," the ranger said. "They're nervous," Lawrence said. Wouldn't you be nervous if you moved far from your home? Everyone wanted to see what the elephants would do. Finally, they stopped pounding and trumpeting and tromped into the bomba. In the morning, the elephants bellowed. They threw dust and flattened their ears. "They are dangerous," said the rangers. "They're sad," said Francois. "They're still scared," said Lawrence. Lawrence talked to Nana. He told her, "Maybe you're worried about this new home and tired from the journey. But if you rest, I'll take care of you. I will live with you by day and camp with you by night. I will stay with you, and you will not be alone." Lawrence built a tent, and he and Max camped out by the bomba. He sang to the elephants during the day and told them stories at night. Soon the elephant's cranky behavior changed to ear-flopping, head-wagging trumpeting. "What does that mean?" said Francois. "They're happy," said Lawrence. Lawrence and the elephants, especially Nana, got to know each other better. Nana and Lawrence walked and talked along the fence together, or Lawrence talked and Nana rumbled back. One morning, Nana reached her trunk through the fence and patted Lawrence on the stomach. It was a true sign of friendship. Lawrence knew he could trust the elephants now, and they trusted him. Lawrence opened the gate to the bomba and let the elephant out to explore the pastures, rivers, and thickets of the Tula Tula. The herd grazed and splashed and played on the savannah. They were home. Lawrence and Max moved back to the house. They still walked and talked with the elephants regularly. And whenever Lawrence went on a trip, the herd knew exactly when he came home. They were always there just in time to welcome him home. Years went by and the herd moved to the far end of Tula Tula, where the best acacia trees grew. A 12-hour journey from Lawrence's house. Lawrence and Francois and Max lived happily in the house. And every few years, Nana and the herd came just for a visit, just to say hello. Then, one sunny day, Lawrence died. Francois was alone in the house. Somehow, deep in the brush of Tula Tula, the elephants knew. They marched together toward Lawrence's home. That very day, they walked and walked and walked. It was a very long walk. They reached the house at night. Francois looked out of her window and saw them, all the elephants around her house. They bowed their heads to her and made soft rumble. In the morning, the elephants greeted Francois, and they camped with her again by night. The herd spent the next 3 days there. They stayed with her, and she was not alone. Shalom.
This is the best story of healing by simply bearing witness to another's pain that I know of. There is no verbal communication. It is not a rational process. There's a lot of intuition and compassion and simply being with each other. This is a true story. And in fact, the story goes on beyond the book in an absolutely eerie and mystically beautiful way. The herd of elephants grew. They are currently at 29 members, which is the maximum capacity for the preserve, and in 2 separate herds. Both herds came to the house when Lawrence died, and they have all returned on the anniversary of his death every year since. How they know that is beyond science at this point, at any rate. So, I have this to say about being a healing presence. If the elephants can do it, so can we. put Mandla in his spot. Our financial gifts, our offering of our financial gifts, is just one way that we connect with each other to do the work of healing our world. Your gifts supply our need for shelter, utilities, supplies, and staff. All of this enables us to act on the principles that we cherish. So thank you for your contribution to our collective efforts. And I see some of you moving in the pews, so I'm going to guess that an offering basket would be helpful. Is that so? Yes? You do the honors.
Oh, I have them.
Okay. An abundance of riches.
I'm coming. Sure.
Brad.
All right. If you want to bring those up, Carol will lead us, and you can simply remain seated as we sing our customary chorus of From You I Receive.
From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live.
Thank you. Now, if you would please open your hymnal to number 468. We will do the responsive reading, We Need One Another, and if you would stand as you are able. And I'm going to ask that we face each other across that center aisle. This really is designed to be somewhat of a dialogue. Now, I will read, well actually we have enough people on both sides so we can do side by side. Laura, will you stay right there and read that side? Sorry, I didn't ask her ahead of time, but.
I'm here, I will. 468.
So I'll move over here. We'll start with the boldface type, and Laurel, if you'll lead this side with the italics. We need one another when we mourn and would be comforted.
We need one another when we are in trouble and afraid.
We
need one another when we are in despair, in temptation, and need to be recalled to our best selves again. We need one another when we would accomplish some great purpose and cannot do it alone. We need one another in the hour of success when we look for someone to share our triumphs. We need one another in the hour of defeat when encouragement might endure and stand again. We need one another when we come to die and would have gentle hands prepare us for the journey. All our lives we are in need, and others are in need of us.
Thank you. Please be seated. In many ways, that kind of sums up a large part of what I want to call to our conscious attention this morning. Because sadly, for us, all of us, trauma is a universal experience. It's as much of a sure thing as death and taxes. How we respond to the trauma in our lives, the uses that we put it to, that varies wildly from person to person and from trauma to trauma. The good news is healing is real. Healing is just as real as trauma is. Healing is not a secret, nor is it limited to those who deserve it, earn it, or somehow qualify for it in some unknown way. Healing is for everyone. Just as trauma is a universal experience, so is healing. Now, please notice that I am saying healing, not curing. Often, healing does not eliminate all traces of trauma, but it does enable us to move past the trauma and establish new connections, new ways of doing things, new ways of being us. The fact is, trauma leaves scars, and scars are evidence of healing. Last week, I spoke to the reality of us, of Westside, as a spiritual community, a community formed by choice and shaped by its members, a community with shared values and specifically shared principles. Those values and principles enable us to do many things together, one of which is to be a place of healing. Now, depending on your personal background, you may or may not have considered our congregation to be a place of healing. It's certainly not something that has received a lot of attention in the past. So I want to speak to that today. Because all spiritual communities are places of healing. Sometimes healing is a stated aspect of the community. Sometimes it's accidental. And although every spiritual community can be healing, not every community offers healing for every person. Westside has sort of waffled with this. I am prescribing a focused acceptance and attention to this aspect of our life together. I believe it will increase the health of our existing community and also be helpful and attractive to newcomers. Mostly, I believe it will help us live out our 7 principles and 6 sources to the fullest. Let me tell you what this means. It means that we pay attention to the fact that many, if not most, of the people that walk through those doors are coming to us because we have been wounded in some way. And we hope that this will be a place where we can be accepted for who we are. We hope that we can grow in whatever the way we feel called to is as a spiritual being. This is true not just for us as a local congregation, but for our whole denomination. As a denomination, we have very few lifelong UUs. Statistically, 10% of adult UUs are what we would call cradle UUs, as in they have been Unitarian Universalist from the cradle and never identified spiritually with any other tradition. The remaining 90% majority of us come from someplace else, either due to conflicts in belief with our original spiritual setting, or sometimes due to specific trauma from that setting. 90% is a lot of hurting people. Now, some folks aren't fleeing immediate trauma. Coming here is part of a complex spiritual journey, but often trauma has happened along the way. The fact is, most of us are hurting and hoping when we reach these doors. So for us to ask ourselves how we are engaged in healing is a really important question. To begin to pay attention to our community as a place of healing means that we need to literally envision our community as a place of healing. Trying to dedicate our sanctuary to that purpose could be a little bit overwhelming. So I am not suggesting that today, although I hope that healing happens here often, more often than any one of us may be aware of. What I am asking us to do today is to create a container for healing, Part of that container is abstract. It's the willingness in our own minds to engage in healing with each other. The other part, you're going to love it. The other part is creating a literal physical vessel for healing. Something that when we see it, we immediately think, healing, us. Now, there are some things that I want to share with you in order to do that. But the first thing you need to know about is the sphere, and Laurel will unveil it for you here. Ta-da! It is the sphere of clay / Play-Doh in the center aisle. A sphere often signifies wholeness. So this sphere symbolizes our whole community. I am inviting us to shape it into a vessel to hold healing as part of our life together. It needs to hold both our need for healing and our willingness to engage in healing with each other. This means that both trauma and healing can be held and recognized in our midst. We'll do this by shaping it into a vessel that is unique to us. So here's how it will work. Each of you, visitor, member, friend, I don't care, but each of you, all of us, are invited to get up as you feel moved to do so. Yes, while I'm talking. Later, give me 3 seconds here to finish. But to get up, come to the center aisle, pull it, pat it, push it, pinch it, jab it with your thumb, your fist, your finger. Do something to create a space within that sphere that we can regard as the container for both our need for healing and our willingness to engage in healing. Maybe we end up with something that looks like a bowl. Maybe we end up with a multi-chambered container. I honestly don't have a clue. It's up to you. We are not creating art, not for the sake of art, although it may actually be art when we're done with it. We are creating a vessel to hold our need and our commitment to healing so that they can be contained and attended to as need arises in our community. So from here on in, if you feel an urge to get up and poke at the clay or shape it in a particular way, please feel free to do so, with the advanced knowledge that what you do to it, the next person might reshape differently, because this is a collective process. So that is all yours. Just do what you feel you need to, and then have a seat. Now, this may spook a few of us. If you're envisioning bizarre kinds of healing rituals where you're expected to speak in tongues, or dance and handle snakes, or swallow fire, you may be relieved to know that there is no such expectation. If you're disappointed because those things are not expected, don't give up hope, because stranger things have happened, although I am not sure when. We all know that compartmentalization is
There we go!
okay.
Good, she's letting off of that.
Science has taught us that compartmentalization is helpful to human beings when we're coping with difficult things, trauma of all sorts. So having a visible container that we have made ourselves to put our trauma and our commitment to healing into can be a really helpful experience. Ultimately, the vessel we create will be put in a safe place and brought out when we need it. It may be in our sanctuary, it may not. It may move around as it's needed. So, as I'm talking about healing and what it is and why we need it as part of our life together, as you're doing, just please get up, set your intention for making a vessel for that energy into place in that sphere of clay. Part of being whole is being able to respond with healing to the traumas of life. So please shape and reshape the clay as we create this container together. And if you think it doesn't need much reshaping by the time you get to it, still put your thumbprint or your fingerprint with your intention into it. The more of us who build it, the stronger it becomes. And as I said before, this includes visitors. You are welcome to participate for yourselves and on behalf of future visitors as well. Now, while we're making our container, let's consider how healing works. The story, The Elephants Come Home, that we read together earlier, is an excellent example of profound healing of spiritual trauma. The elephants were traumatized by the violent death of their matriarch. They grieved her loss deeply. It affected their behavior to the point that people wanted to kill them all. They were so afraid of them. Lawrence Anthony accepted them in their grief and anger. He established boundaries. He camped outside their boma. And he kept vigil with them until they were able to trust and accept him. It took him several weeks of non-stop 24/7 presence to soothe the elephants. After years of relationship, they returned that favor to his widow, Francois, when he died on March 2nd of 2012, not all that long ago. Keeping vigil with her for 3 days after a 12-hour march through the jungle. How they knew about his death remains a mystery and a reality. Healing is often both mystery and reality. As I said before, we can do this. When one or another of us is in pain, upset, reliving past trauma, unable to cope on our own, we can simply sit together. As humans, we often feel a powerful need to speak to the issues at hand. Sometimes that's called for, other times not. Can you imagine what our life together would be like if we were totally honest with each other about our need for help, for healing with each other? Most of the time, most of us insist we're fine when we're really not. We need to learn how to accept the healing presence of others, as well as how to be that healing presence for others. But again, if elephants can do it, so can we. There are many ways to offer healing help to people. I'm not going to list them all out for us here and now. I'm sure you can make your own list of possibilities. Things like journaling, walking in a natural setting, getting up to watch the sunrise, meditating, reading inspiring poetry, writing your own or stories, exercising vigorously, weeping in the shower, bathing in healing waters at the hot springs. You can all add what works for you to that list, I'm sure. Many of these are things we can share with others if we choose to. And that's the issue. We have a choice, and we have to make it. Now, I've been asked to explain why I am so sure that this is important for us as a congregation. So here's why. Trauma does one of two things to people. Either we are in pain from it, and some of our energy goes into coping with that pain, or we've squished it down and blocked it off in our brains, and even though we have no conscious awareness of it at all, some of our energy goes into keeping it blocked. In both instances, our psychic energy is diverted to coping with trauma, even if it's ancient. And that's a problem. People come here hoping to grow safely. And often, we do. But if a portion of our energy goes into coping with pain or blocking memories on a regular basis, we don't have access to our whole selves to grow freely. We're bound up with the trauma, whether we know it or not. Now, a lot of time, it sneaks out. And sometimes we, or perhaps more often the people around us, are aware that we have buttons that sometimes get pushed by people unintentionally. They don't know about our difficulties with XYZ and didn't realize that touching on that area would bring us pain. And often, because most of us don't like causing other people pain, we learn to avoid certain topics so that those buttons aren't pushed. Which sounds kind, which it's meant to be. But what do we do when one person's need for healing is exactly the same as another person's need to avoid mention of a past trauma? Or when one person's need to celebrate a spiritual event in their lives is painful and traumatizing for the person beside them? What do we do when people leave our congregation in pain over spiritual issues they didn't feel they could name, lest they push someone else's trauma button? And I am not hypothesizing here. All of these things have happened to us. The problem with unhealed trauma is that both the initial victim and then the rest of us are held hostage to it, which magnifies the traumatic impact, even if we don't recognize it. We all become constricted without even knowing why. Frankly, I just don't like giving that much power over to evil, destructive acts. I would much rather put our power and energy into healing, even though it's not easy. Healing often starts with the individual who's been hurt. They recognize and name their injury. Sometimes there's a prelude to that awareness when, after a period of blocking their pain from themselves, someone else recognizes it and says, "Hey, have you thought about this?" and asks them to consider it. Either way, naming the nature of our woundedness is an important first step. Once we know what the problem is, we have to decide if we want to heal from it. Now that may sound ridiculous, because if we're hurting, if a person is traumatized, who wouldn't want to heal? Well, actually, many people. Healing can be really hard work. It may have life-changing results. So here's a real-life story for you. This is from my repertoire of when I was a psych nurse. One of the first adult patients that I worked with, after a long stint working with adolescents, was a woman named Beverly. Beverly was in her 50s. She had been admitted to the community hospital psychiatric unit due to her depression and anxiety attacks. Her treating psychiatrist wanted to regulate her meds and provide a safe environment to confront some difficult treatment issues. I worked closely with her as her nurse throughout her hospitalization. She easily shared the story of her trauma with me. When she was 12, her brother, who was 17, had chased her around the kitchen table brandishing a knife and yelling that he wanted to rape her. She told me it only happened one time, but she never forgot it and she never got over it. Her brother never threatened her in any way again. She had no idea why he had done so that one time. She hadn't told her parents because she was afraid they might not believe her. She insisted it had really happened. I believed her. What I had trouble believing was that she'd sat on this from age 12 to age 50. That's 38 years of actively dealing with painful trauma. I asked what she'd tried over the years to cope with the traumatic event. So she described how she thought about it and what it meant to her. She had graduated high school, married, raised several children. Her kids were now grown and doing well out on their own, and she and her husband were about to celebrate their wedding anniversary. She said she really loved him, but she felt terribly sorry for him, because due to her trauma, her marriage was falling apart. It was noteworthy to me that Beverly never actually talked about any kind of healing or helpful intervention until the past few years when she had sought therapy for depression and anxiety. Her meds weren't really helping any longer. She was hopeful that her doctor could find a new pill that would work. After a few days to settle into the unit, her psychiatrist asked me to join them for her therapy session. He reviewed her history with her, both in regard to the traumatic experience as well as her medication history, what had helped, what had not. And then he asked her, "Beverly, what do you think would change if you healed from that trauma?" She couldn't answer the question. She responded by repeating her hope for a pill that would keep her calm and let her sleep without anxiety attacks. Those were awful, and they really are. But she couldn't even imagine life without that trauma at the center of it. Finally, her psychiatrist said, "Beverly, until you're ready to heal from this trauma, to do the work that is necessary to heal from it and let it go, nothing is going to work. You have to make the decision to heal. No one else can do that for you." This was the critical confrontation her doctor was afraid would be too difficult for her. He knew that she defined herself by her trauma. Without it, she was afraid she wouldn't even know who she really was. What would she do, she asked me later. What would she think about all day if it wasn't that horrible experience? That conversation focused and shaped the rest of her hospital stay. She had a huge decision to make, engaging in healing and recreating herself, or remain profoundly handicapped by her trauma in ways she had gotten used to and knew what to expect. We, as a congregation, cannot offer healing for one another without the conscious awareness of the brokenness and the trauma that call for it. We cannot offer to be a place of healing without any intention of actually doing anything about it. I've had people say to me, "Of course we're a place of healing. We're good, nice people, and we care about each other." Yes, we often are, but that is not enough. When good things happen by accident, we call it serendipity. And sometimes healing happens by serendipity. And I rejoice when it does. But we cannot rely on serendipity to heal all of our human woes. We have agency and intention, and they need to be employed in the process of healing. You may be wondering what exactly I am asking for or prescribing for our congregation other than the creation of a rather unusual container. Good job, folks. Here's the thing. It's not up to me to tell you exactly how to do this. This is me encouraging and coaching and consulting, part of my job as your consulting minister, so that we can work on this together. My goal for us for today is to create a container for hurt and healing, which are sometimes hard to tell apart. Debriding a wound to enable healing can be painful. How much we share with each other and who we share it with is a personal decision. I do not want anyone to feel exposed or vulnerable in a way that re-traumatizes them. I do want us to think about our own spiritual trauma, the wounds that we have received that compromise the core of who we are and how we connect meaningfully with all of life, and to become aware of our own healing process in regard to them. Some of us will be in a place of rest on this journey. Others of us will be actively engaged in either avoiding or healing from trauma. Whatever your experience is, I want you to know that there are people in your congregation who can be helpful to you, not as licensed professionals. That's a whole other category of help. But we have people with skills and training who are willing to be with you, like Lawrence Anthony was with the elephants. We will sit with you and walk with you and listen and talk with you. We will be witnesses along your journey. We will affirm your healing. This is something you can ask for from your congregation. I am available to help anyone who would like to engage in that kind of process. So is Carol Eaglehart and Julia Fancuchin. Ask whoever you're most comfortable with. There is no ego involved in this for any of the three of us. No structure and no hierarchy to be observed. You can also volunteer your compassionate presence with anyone you perceive to be in need. Let's face it, if you offer help to someone, the worst thing they can do is say no. I mean, seriously. And it may be that the nudge of your offer is helpful in and of itself. But bear in mind, we do not harass anyone into healing. Now, Laurel mentioned in the announcements that next week is a Theology on Tap Sunday with the topic, what does it mean to you to be a UU? I sincerely hope that being part of a spiritual community that is aware of itself as a place of healing is part of that. Not the whole thing by any means, but a meaningful part. And if it's not, we need to think about why that is and decide if that's really what we want and how we can be clear about who we are without raising false hopes. Everyone who walks through those doors, even those of us who do it weekly and have done so for years, do so with hope in their hearts. Healing helps fulfill hope. Shalom. Now, it appears that everyone has had an opportunity to make their impression quite literally on our container. So, okay, we don't have time. But if you want to chat in the social hall over coffee and respond to some of the perhaps outrageous, who knows, things that I've just laid out for you, that would be lovely. And at this point, I will invite you to open your hymnal to number 311. Let us stand as we are able and join in singing, Let It Be a Dance, because the image of dancing is an excellent one for healing. I didn't hear that clearly, Judy, but I'm sure you said you wanted to dance. Yes, well, we only have so much time and we're over it, so we're just going to sing it.
But you can dance.
But yes, feel
Everybody
free
else
to dance,
wants to, absolutely.
Spontaneously. It's all yours.
Why not? Absolutely.
Let it be a dance we do. May I have this dance with you. Through the good times and the bad times too. Let it be a dance. Let a dancing song be heard. Play the music, say the words, and fill the sky with sailing birds. Let it be a dance, let it be a dance, let it be a dance. follow, learn to lead. Feel the rhythm, feel the need. To reap the harvest, plant the seed. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance we do. May I have this dance with you. Through the good times and the bad times too. Let it be a dance. Everybody turn and spin. Let your body learn to bend. And like a willow with the wind. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance. A child is born, the old must die. A time for joy, a time to cry. Take it as it passes by. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance we do. May I have this dance with you. Through the good times and the bad times too. Let it be a dance. Morning star comes out at night. Without the dark there is no light. If nothing's wrong and nothing's right. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance. Let the sunshine, let it rain. Share the laughter, bear the pain. And round we go again. Let it be a dance. Yes.
If you'll join me now in the words to extinguishing our chalice. Low behind here. May our chalice flame continue to inspire and shape our community from deep within our hearts. May we affirm and support each other by recognizing trauma, facilitating health, and supporting the growth of our community as a place of healing. Shalom. May we all find the healing we need in all of life's difficulties. May we be willing to help one another. May we be willing to be helped by each other. May we grow together as a spiritual community that practices healing as a way of life. Shalom. Shalom. And now as we're facing across the center aisle, we will sing Go Now in Peace and then go to the social hall. Enjoy your coffee. Go in peace. Go now in peace. Go now in peace.